Like people wonder, like if their computer's broken or something.
You're on now.
Hello.
What's going on?
We're getting the party started.
How's it going?
Where's the slide? Oh, there we go. Okay. All right.
Hope everyone's doing well tonight.
Very good.
Good.
Yep.
You don't want to have to pay the Doobie Brothers royalties.
Oh,
Fair enough. Thank you.
good catch.
Okay. All right. We're doing this thing. Let me turn this off. Okay. Can you guys hear us okay?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Maybe we don't need mics.
Yeah.
But we do have mics. Oh, wait, I gotta turn the speaker on. That's fine. We'll be fine. If you guys need us to get louder, just tell us. So, thank you all for coming. Tonight is the very first event here in Witch Lab 2.0. This is our new wonderful event space. And we are so lucky, incredibly fortunate to have Astrea Taylor and Jason Mankey here to discuss their new book, Modern Witchcraft with the Greek Gods.
Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, thank you both for being here. Thank you so much. Thank you for traveling so very far. Jason is all the way here from California.
Well, I told you, I think online a year ago, that we would do the book launch for this at your store. So, you know, I'm a man of my word.
And I'm so lucky, and I feel so honored, and it's on your home turf, right?
Yeah.
Because you're an Ohio girl.
Yeah, I'm from Dayton.
Awesome.
Mhm.
I love Dayton. The Boonshoft is my favorite museum. They have a mummy in Dayton. Did you know that? At the Boonshoft. Yeah, go to the Boonshoft. It's amazing. So let's talk about this book.
Okay, yeah.
How did you guys get together and decide, one, the topic, and two, that it would be the both of you?
Well, Jason and my first conversation was about this book, basically. It turned into this book. We were talking for about an hour about all kinds of things. He was an author. I was a fiction writer at the time. I'd written 2 fiction books, and we were both talking about how much we just love the Greek gods and how we felt that there wasn't a book that really did them justice with not only the myth, but also the cultural history and, you know, some modern practices and devotional insights, you know, the unverified personal gnosis kind of stuff that is so juicy that I love. And so we actually agreed to do the book that day, the first day we ever met.
Really?
So if you want to write a book with Jason, I suggest you just approach him and just, you know.
I don't remember this.
It worked for
I
me.
might not have been sober. I really don't remember this.
Oh, yeah.
I remember where we met,
You said
Wait, when did you say this was?
2017.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when the pandemic hits and I was done writing a book and he was done writing a book, we were like, what are we going to do next? And we were like, oh, how about this? And it's obviously a big topic to broach. You know, we wanted to do it justice, and we're both very fanatical about, you know, being accurate and historical, but we thought we could do it. It was a pandemic project and it just came together really well.
It was one of my only 5 favorite days. Like, I don't think I only liked 5 days of the pandemic. And I remember when I was on my porch, and we were talking about how we were going to split up the book. And that was sort of the reality that we were really going to write it. I think we'd already signed the contract, but now, if the reality was that we were actually doing something, yeah, it was like, you can write the history of Apollo, and you can write like the stuff about Apollo, that kind of thing. Yeah, that was a lovely 30 minutes.
Yes.
Then the mail person came by, and I ran inside and hid behind the door because it was the pandemic.
COVID, you know.
Yeah.
They didn't know how to spread it first and stuff.
Yeah, it was rough.
Don't get too close.
Well, at that point, I don't think I had touched anybody other than my wife in like 6 months, you know? So you had to move, you know, remember that? You had to like kind of move slowly back into touching people.
Oh my God, hugging people?
Yeah. I remember I was drunk one night and I hugged one of my friends, And then I was like, oh my fucking God, what did I do? Should I not like sit next to, should I not sleep next to my wife tonight? What should I do?
Right?
Yeah. It's different times. Let's never do that again.
Done over with.
Yeah.
So, Astrea, I didn't realize that you wrote fiction.
Yeah, I have 2 fiction books, self-published, but I love writing so much, and so yeah, it's a labor of love. Every book is a labor of love, and this was a labor of love also. A lot of labor, a lot of love.
Oh, it's like giving birth. It really is. You know, there's a lot to it.
And this gestation period was especially long.
Yeah, I feel like everything got put on hold for years, right, as a result of what we went through.
Yeah, and it was harder to do everything during the pandemic, right? So it was harder to write a book too. And, you know, it's probably maybe like 112K words, 120, but, you know, usually our books are about 100K each, and that's easy, but collaborating and having it be this academic, that was really, it took a lot for us to really get the words onto paper and make them exactly how we wanted them to be.
Writing with footnotes is more labor intensive than writing without footnotes. Because when you quote something, you have to think, where did this come from? Then you have to write the stupid citation that you know that you didn't use the right format for, and your editor's going to yell at you for it later. So, you know, there's a lot going on there. But it does, like if 1,000 words takes 3 hours regularly, if you're adding citations, that's another hour or maybe even 2 hours. And, you know, sometimes a paragraph can cite 2 or 3 different sources. So you're like looking through things. So the history parts were pretty labor intensive.
Yeah, we have over 500 footnotes or citations, you know, however you want to look at them.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's kind of insane. And then the editor would come back and say, where's the footnote for this one? And we'd be like, which one of the 18 books that I read about this deity?
Where did I say that? Where did I read that? Right.
That was mind-boggling too. But we got through, yeah, and I'm really proud of it.
Well, we just got the book yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I'm very excited. What are each of your favorite parts of the book?
That's a really great question, because I think I have like maybe 5 or 6. A lot of it was about reading about deities that I wasn't necessarily super familiar with and then putting that into the book. So this is going to get me in trouble in witchcraft circles, but I've never been a big Hecate person. And so I was really scared to write that passage. So I had to write the history passage on her, and it was really illuminating in so many ways.
Oh.
And I think that it came out really well. I was really proud of that. Hera and Zeus are something that stick out for me. So like we have these ideas about goddesses like Hera. When you read mythology, it's not very flattering. Like, what does she seem to be most interested in doing? Killing Zeus's bastard children, right? And I understand that she's angry and needs to, you know, work through those anger issues. But it's not Heracles' fault. It's certainly not Dionysus' fault. But yet, those are the people that she's punishing, or the women, right? Yeah.
I don't think there's a lot of logic with the myth of Greek gods. It's not logic. They're not like emotionally intelligent.
No.
They're very vengeful.
Well, I think that's why they appeal to
moment.
us. I think that's why they appeal to us.
Because they appeal to our
like
human
that.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not like rising above. They kind of get into the dirtiness of being human, you know?
But somebody like Hera, though, like you read it, the myths, and there's all this jealousy, and you're like, wow, who would want to worship her, right? And then you read about how people worshipped her and how much they loved her, and how her character as a deity that you worship was almost the complete opposite of how she was portrayed in mythology.
Wow.
So very, very different. And Zeus is sort of the same way. Zeus, I am the king of the gods. I sit at the top of Mount Olympus. Everything revolves around me. I'm going to throw some thunderbolts. He seems distant and remote, hard to know. And people would write about him in the ancient world as Zeus is my friend. Like, this is a god that you could be personal with and very close to, right? And it's just not what you were expecting. And I think that's one of the joys of the book and the research of the book. Usually I hate doing this kind of research, and it was really fun because all these misconceptions just blow up in your head and you find out all these different things.
Yeah. So many things.
Yeah.
I would have to say my favorite part was sharing my personal experiences with some of the deities. Like we had to fill in the blanks. We had 22 passage authors, which is a lot. We just shipped 22 books for each of them today.
I'm sorry. So passage authors are other people who are in.
Yeah, like we had somebody write about their devotional magical practices with Apollo. Somebody wrote about Hera. Somebody wrote about.
I didn't realize there were all of these personal things in it. That's really cool. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
And so we couldn't fill every gap. And for some of them, Jason and I got to talk about our own devotional magical practices with these deities. And that was amazing. You know, like I love working with Dionysus and Athena, and I got to share some of the most magical experiences simply because nobody else popped up, you know, to write that. And so it was amazing for me to get to share that and to talk about it. And actually, while I was writing the Athena passage, I had this dream about her where she just like took this, the fabric of my dream and kind of like parted the curtain and just like looked at me, this magnificent being made of light. And like, in the middle of when I was writing her history, so it was so magical. I have like goosebumps right now. But so getting to know them even more revealed even more for us, and that was really magical too.
When you talk about revealing things about yourself, though, so I've written 9 books, and that's a lot of books, and that's a lot of rituals. And sometimes you're like, what can I do that's different for this book? So I had to write an activity with Pan, and I chose masturbating. And I thought, wow, this is like, you know, really personal, sort of, to put into words.
It's not only perfect, but also, very personal.
Yeah. I mean, it is the most personal thing that one can do, really, right? Yeah. And there's an audio of this book, and I really want to hear the person reading the book go through this chapter.
Because she sounds very straight-laced, very like, da, 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 you know, like, oh.
Then begin to touch yourself. You know, I can't wait.
Oh my God.
Navigating, you know.
Yeah. So there's that in this book too. You know, hope you're not horrified.
No, more into it actually.
Yeah.
Wait. So there's a part about Jason's masturbation in the book.
It's an activity
which page is this?
It's an activity that you can do in the book. It's
a magical practice.
Pan was
raise energy.
Pan was the god of masturbation. You know, being a shepherd is lonely. It's either that or sheep.
What's really funny about that is that before that section came around, we were just going to be like, it's all by Jason and Astrea. And there were no like bylines. And I was like, wait a minute. We got to say like, Jason wrote this. And also because.
Because now people are like, which one? Wait, who's saying something now?
And then just so people wouldn't think that I had a wife named Ari too.
Because when you write like you speak, and both of you do, which I love and I appreciate, is that you naturally flow and will use words like Ari.
Yeah.
My wife, Ari. Yeah. So yeah, I guess you had to separate them.
The publisher, they did a great job with that, I think. And, you know, because we have so many passage authors too, they separated those out. So you see who was writing from the beginning, because I always hate it when I'm reading a book and then the tone completely changes. And then,
oh my God, and then you don't see till the end.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they're like, I thought you didn't worship Norse people, and now I'm getting whiplash. And I'm like, oh, it's somebody else.
Where are we?
Yeah. You know, so we made sure that it was at the beginning, so you knew who was writing at that time.
There is a great story that I found out about while we were writing the book. Astrea and I, you know, we'd have to chat on the phone periodically. And she goes, I was talking to Matt Oren, who's the author of Psychic Witch. And she's like, I was talking about like the beginning of one of your sections, and it began with my wife Ari and I. And Matt's like, all of Jason's books begin with my wife Ari and I. And I didn't really know that was a thing. And apparently it is a thing.
I knew about Ari when was the Transformative, thank you.
Yeah.
When I read Transformative Witchcraft, then I knew about it. Which was, 4 years ago or so. I
got in trouble for that book because it talks about us having sex on top of a hill with everybody watching us. She's like, why do you do this? I'm like, I don't know, why not?
Shut up, I'm ranting about masturbation.
Can you come in here and help me with something? Yeah, you can help me with this part of the book? Yeah, right there. There you go. Thank you. Yeah. I tend to embarrass, my wife and everyone I work with. So yeah, you had to put our names on the chapters because of me. So yeah,
You're like, I don't want to. This is not me. This is not me.
Clearly, it's just.
So, just personal wise, how long have you and Ari been married?
See, almost 25 years.
Wow,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Or 43 years, we're not sure.
Fair enough.
We went to a like hotel, this little nice hotel in Napa, California for her 40th birthday, and we were checking in. And they're like, your room is not ready yet, but we'll hold your luggage. And so we were like, great. So we walked off to a winery, drank some wine, and we came back. And they're like, your luggage is in your room. Everything's great. And we walked in, and there's a little complimentary bottle of champagne, and it said, "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Mankey, congratulations on your 40th wedding anniversary." And I was like, I don't know if I've aged well or not, but I didn't think it was that rough. And they had seen us. It's not like,
Oh my God.
we were faceless. So been married 43 years and like 25 years.
Face cream.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you use exactly? Like a placenta thing?
Stem
It'll be in
cells.
the next book.
Lots of stem cells.
Oh, so is there a next book? Collectively or independently?
Well,
You guys-
someone did joke about us writing about another pantheon, and I think that's a brilliant idea, but
That is.
I don't know if we'll do it. Well, it's a funny thing to think about right now because this is the first day this book is out. We did just learn that we got #1. It's a bestseller on the new release list. So thank you. So we're really thrilled about that. That's a dream come true, obviously, for any author, and it's good to hear. But yeah, so I think that we're thinking about that kind of stuff, like the Celtic gods. But as Jason mentioned earlier in a different podcast interview, there's less information generally about those deities. But if we did do it, we want to do the same way, like with the historical section, the myth and the cultural history, and then magical practices, and then devotional a devotee section as well.
Yeah, you have a book coming out this summer.
I have a book coming out in July. Yeah, it's called Inspiring Creativity Through Magic. It's about
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's because I'm a creative person. I fire dance, I did pottery, I knit scarves, and write books, obviously. But
Wait. The first thing you said sounded like you fired ants.
I fire dance. I dance with fire.
You fired ants. Sorry. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Fired ants,
You're
that was
fired.
fascinating.
Fired some ants.
Get out.
It's a very creative activity.
Get out.
But
Put
yeah.
down those crumbs.
So that book is all about creating a ritual to enhance your creativity and working with the muse spirit, kind of as a witch is familiar.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I feel like, tapping into your muse is
Yes.
huge.
For
It's beautiful.
inspiration.
Yes.
Because I have a muse spirit. He looks like a crow, and at first I was like, "How did you get in my house?" And warden, He's very nice. He's very generous. He just wants me to keep going.
Oh.
So he's helped me write all of these books, and I wouldn't be here without him.
That's lovely. It looks like a crow.
Yeah.
Does he have, I'm not gonna ask him.
Yes.
But okay. Wonderful. Lovely. I was going to ask you his name, but that's not the thing you need to share.
He has a public name and a private name. His public name is Crow.
Excellent. Excellent. I love that he has a private name too. That's why I wasn't going to ask because, some things are private.
Yeah.
So possibly other pantheons, and maybe you said this already, but being on camera makes me nervous and stuff. So was there a reason you decided on Greek gods specifically for this one?
A personal love of the Greek gods.
Okay, so just gut
Yeah.
pull towards.
Some works, I think, when you're a witchcraft writer, and nobody writes witchcraft books to make money, really. They're not, it's not a particularly lucrative job. You write because you love it, or there's something that you want to say, to the broader community.
Mhm.
And this book we wrote because we love the Greek gods. We grew up loving the mythology,
Mhm.
and we have personal relationships with some of the Greek gods. I mean, not all of them, which is why that there are other contributors,
Right.
right? But yeah, so this was a devotional work
Mhm.
for me. It was a way of giving back for all that I feel like they've given me. The Hard God of the Witches was the same sort of book. was a devotional book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely was. I read The Horn of God, and it was definitely like a devotional to the different gods that you personally work with.
Yeah.
So
And even some I don't, that just needed to be in that book anyways, right? And I feel like this book's the same.
Right.
There's some, maybe we don't have personal relationships with them, or maybe we don't even think about them a whole lot, but for whatever reason, it just felt like this particular figure needs to be in this book.
Yeah.
Especially kind of the last two sections.
Yes.
There are thousands of Greek gods.
So we do all the Olympians, right?
Mhm.
And then after that, we're like, okay, what next? Well, we got, Hecate or Hecate.
Which is
a
Titan?
Yeah,
Yes.
Titan.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we go into Gaia, Nyx, a lot of other deities. It's really interesting. We just wanted to explore them, and some of them are just commonly called upon in witch circles and whatnot, and some of them are just personal to us. Like Gaia, I just love her so much. She's one of the reasons why I went into earth science.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fascinating. So, and what do you do in earth science?
I'm an environmental scientist.
Oh.
Yes.
No big deal. Number one best-selling author, also earth scientist.
Just saving the planet. It's all good.
No bags.
All in a day's work for
That's
her.
fantastic. That's definitely an occupation of which you can be proud of.
Oh yeah.
Way to go, friend.
Thank you.
That's excellent. So I know one more thing about, so you said the Olympians, right, and there's Titans. When you start getting into it, oh my God, there's so many different groups even that
Right.
you don't even know about. So I'm very excited to delve into this, and I'm excited to learn about all this stuff because, and this leads me to my next question. It's so hard to find all this information. Where do you research it? What's your go-to when you're looking to work on something that you don't personally work with even? Where do you go?
Wikipedia. I mean, that's where all of my books start, is Wikipedia.
Did you say no?
This is sarcasm coming out again. For those who don't detect it, yeah. No.
Oh my God, his sarcasm is so subtle, it's frustrating. And then he literally says, I'm not sarcastic. So straight-faced.
We looked at a lot of different sources. We kind of tried to get everything that we could get our hands on that was actually accurate and well-respected. We wanted more modern research. We had to default to some older research from the 60s for a couple of things because nothing new was published about them. But for the Eleusinian mysteries, for example.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
I must have read over 40, probably over 60, and I used probably 40 sources to generate the material for that, to just try to disseminate it, because some books had this much info and others had this, and it wasn't the same. And I was like, why isn't this all together? And I really wanted to paint the most complete picture I could of the Eleusinian mysteries. And so to do that, we had to, I had to find a lot of sources and then also hypothesize about some things too, because there are things we just don't know because it was a mystery cult, a mystery religion.
For sure, and it got shut down hard. So just for everybody, can you give us the elevator pitch on Eleusinian mysteries real quick?
If you come to Eleusis, you can walk in the footsteps of Demeter and Persephone. You can see the cave of Hades and go to a theater where there are torches and maybe there's something hallucinogenic in
No, there's no hallucinogenics.
You don't
But the
answer that
original
question.
Eleusinian, the whole point was that was what they were giving people, right?
They
No,
gave people
I don't think so.
something to drink.
I don't think
Hiking.
so.
Really?
I don't,
They gave people
and
something to
I don't
drink.
think so because of,
Well, you don't think it's hallucinogenic.
well, they do drink the kykeon. We know they drank the kykeon, which is probably like a barley drink or something.
Yeah.
But the problem with it being hallucinogenic is you would have tried to have grown ergot, which is not easy to grow, and you would have been growing it for 1,000 years, and the effects on your body are not good. You're probably going to throw up. You're going to be very uncomfortable. People wrote about the mysteries. They didn't say what happened, but if everybody was yakking at the mysteries, they would have said that.
Yeah, but
We also would have had the agricultural
microdose.
evidence of
Yeah.
what was being
So-
grown. So it seems to me very unlikely that there was a hallucinogenic substance
And
there.
that's what some scholars believe.
Okay, well, that's interesting though. So, but what do you attribute what they got out of it? Because the Eleusinian mysteries were people would go and they would be part of a ritual or they would drink a thing and then they would no longer be afraid of death. They would feel euphoric. They would feel that this world is actually okay and that everything is okay. What do you attribute that to if not hallucinogenics?
Well, they had good ritual techniques. There's a reason the Freemasons have been around for hundreds of years. It's the ritual technique. So, you would start the mysteries in Athens, and then you would walk to Eleusis.
And fastings.
And then you get outside and you dance for Demeter, and then you get inside and you fast for basically 24 hours.
Do you think this was just like more natural plays on the body's natural rhythms to get you into that sort of liminal space?
They put a blindfold on you when you were doing the mysteries. And while that was happening, there are people yelling everywhere. Where is Kore? Where's the girl? Where's Persephone? Where can we find her? And while that's happening, you're blindfolded and you're in a space that you're unfamiliar with and don't know where you are. You're probably a little panicked, a little scared. And then the second years are running around with torches and waving them in front of your
You're not
face.
blindfolded. So.
And
So second years are people who have been there before.
right. There's two levels of the mysteries.
Okay.
So they're waving that in your face, right? And then at the same time, there's like a gong in the background. Gong, the screaming, not knowing where you are. It's terrifying, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so disorienting.
Yes,
for sure.
and that creates an altered state of consciousness. Then I think that's probably all that you need. And then when it's done, they bring you into a sanctuary where there's like really, really bright light and you can see the gods for a second. And then they take that blindfold off in the really, really bright light. You're not going to see everything as it really is, right? Because your eyes have been covered for so long. So all of a sudden you've been having this really amazing panicked experience. And then you're gazing upon the gods in this sort of different form because of your lack of sight. And then you're like brought out from the room. So I don't think you need psychedelics.
We think that they said something beneficial about the afterlife as well, based on a lot of different sources.
Yeah, there was definitely something that made them not afraid of death. Like that's a big part of it, right?
Yeah, and we believe that, well, a lot of scholars believe that Christianity was influenced by those mysteries, and that's why they offered the afterlife as well.
So was there a specific sort of idea of the afterlife with the Eleusinian mysteries, or
It's funny because the earliest references we have are that the afterlife is this cold, damp, dark place. You wander around, everyone's there bumping into each other, and it's miserable. And then with the Eleusinian mysteries, though, the initiates go to a more special place. And they, they're in this warm place. They're loved, the fields, and they have Persephone there, and she's helping them.
Interesting. So I never realized that it was sort of if you were an initiate of this, then it would be different. I always read it as that once you went through the things, you just weren't worried about it anymore because it wasn't what you thought it was going to be. But I didn't realize that because I just thought that then they were like, oh no, that those people are wrong. It's not actually a gross dark place. It's actually fine. But not that, only us get to be in the not gross dark place.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize that was a difference.
That's what we think anyway, and that's what scholars think. And so, it's a lot of hypotheses because the mystery wasn't shared. It was a mystery. People respected it for the most part. Little bits and pieces were allowed to be talked about, but not a lot.
You have some Christian writers, who talk about it because they went through the mysteries and then, they didn't really care about their oaths.
Yeah.
There's also there's also scenes of the mysteries on some Greek vases.
Yeah.
And then, Eleusis still exists as a site.
Like you were saying, you can go there now. That's what you were talking about before.
Yeah. I've been in that cave. Been in the cave of Hades.
Oh,
Yeah.
The picture.
Wow.
Yeah. Not very many people go to Eleusis. It's it's really in bad shape. I mean, it's very sad to see because it's almost all torn down. When Ari and I went, I'm going to begin a story that way. When Ari and I went, I think there were three
and
others.
who's Ari again? So this isn't you, Astrea? Okay.
There were, I think, only 3 other people there.
Wow.
On a Tuesday in
What?
May.
Really?
Yeah.
That's really surprising.
Yeah. It wasn't like the Acropolis with people everywhere or whatever. It was, Eleusis is right next, Like there's like an industrial factory kind of right up against Eleusis. And it's, as I say, 14, 15 miles outside of Athens.
Wow.
And not in very good shape. But, still an amazing place. It was always high on my list when I got to go to Greece.
For sure. That's definitely something you would want to go see, right? Did either of you look into, I know there's a book, The Immortality Key, that this guy, I forget his name, Brian something, but he wrote all about that stuff, and he was actually searching for like the mystery behind what it was that they found.
That didn't come up. I wrote.
It's a newer book. It's I don't know that you would, but it's actually what I listened to. It's the guy is fascinating. Actually, I found it. So my boyfriend had sent me a small clip of, actually he was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he was talking about this site that they had found where Hecate was worshipped. They had found a bunch of stuff about it, and so I went and I listened to the Joe Rogan interview with him, and the guy is really, really smart, but he reads his own book on Audible, and so I literally listen to it to go to sleep because it's fantastic information, and I just keep hoping that it'll just get in because it's really hard to listen to, but a lot of good stuff. But that's not your book. We're talking about your book today. So, we were talking about books coming out. So, Jason, what are you working on?
I'm working on a biography of Raymond Buckland. That will be out probably in 2025. No, 2024. Not that long. 2024.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's long. And then I have an
That's
anthology
fantastic.
about Crononos that should be out early next year. I didn't write most of it. It's a devotional piece, but
Okay.
I'm one of the editors of it. So
Okay.
it'll keep up my streak of having like a copyright Jason Mankey book out every year since 2016. So that's
Yeah.
exciting for me personally.
That's awesome. Very prolific writing. Like, get to it.
That's the power of Wikipedia. You can really write a lot of things in a hurry. Just a hint to everybody writing.
Just copy and paste, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
You don't actually need to know anything.
No.
Just bring it over. That's fine. Just organize it right.
I
And then throw Ari in every once in a while so we think it's
Yeah,
it's fine.
name your partner, or if you have a pet, and then quote Wikipedia, and you're done. You have a book.
That'll work.
Yeah.
That'll work.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that some books are actually written that way.
Yeah. Feels like Llewellyn books of the 90s. I didn't say that. out loud.
Oh shit. This isn't being recorded or anything. Also, are we still good here? Does anybody want to see if there's any questions there? And do you guys have any questions? Nothing?
I can tell you how to use Wikipedia more effectively.
Yeah, I can bring it up.
Some of those like search comma things.
Yeah. Go into the edits, you
Be
find
really
out
specific.
weird things. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Huh.
Edits, huh?
Yeah.
Good to know. Do either of you have a Wikipedia page?
I don't think so.
No. There aren't a whole lot of pagan writers who do have Wikipedia pages.
No, who was I interviewing? Was it Judica, possibly? Somebody had one, and I was like, you have a Wikipedia page. And they were so excited.
Sarita Diesta has one,
Okay.
but Judica probably should have one. But
I think it was somebody, I think it was her.
I don't even think Silver Ravenwolf does.
Really? That's
And
not
she
true.
should. She should. Because
Marianne, look it up, see.
We know that's yeah.
yeah, Raymond Buckland had one.
Oh, we do have a question.
Okay.
Was there a least favorite god or goddess?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Hate that guy.
Yes, it was really hard to write about Aries, and
Mm.
we were like, oh, this guy, I don't know. It was hard for us to write about him. And then what's funny is when we were doing the research, we found out that that's how a lot of people felt back then too. He wasn't that popular, even though he was an Olympian. We couldn't find a passage author for him.
Even only in Thebes was Ares very popular. Even in Sparta, which we associate with war,
Right.
with war and things,
This is
they kept a big statue of Ares in chains. And yeah, so he was
Wow.
not particularly well liked. Now it's very different with Mars and the Romans, where Mars was originally an agricultural deity and was very important to the Romans, but also a lot more warlike than the Greeks in some ways. Yeah, so Ares was the most difficult. Even in the Iliad, Zeus says, if you were not my son, you'd have been kicked out of here long ago. Like he just tears into him. I mean, it's really uncomfortable if you think, wow, my father had spoken to me that way. right? So yeah, Aries was the toughest one to write about.
So what's the elevator pitch on Aries then? Like give me like I mean, I know God of War and all that, but like what I don't know, is there a good side?
If you wanted somebody to fight for you,
yeah.
If you wanted somebody to go in and kick somebody's ass, Aries was the person that you wanted
like,
by your side. But but if you wanted to win a battle, you didn't consult Aries, you consulted Athena.
Yeah.
Because he was not a god of strategy or tactics.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's almost a little buggy.
Yeah, so the magical section, we suggest ingesting cinnamon for courage for him, but then also having peppermint leaves on hand to cool yourself off when you're done with all the Aries energy.
Yeah, to bring it down, man, because like the adrenaline is hard on you. It's hard on your system. You know, if you're invoking that, then you're gonna have that.
It's kind of like a berserker warrior in a way. So if you want to think of it that way, you know, I don't be a berserker all the time.
No, that's a good way to put it.
Berserkers, you know, but yeah, it's intense.
Which sucks because like, sometimes, everybody has a role to fill, right? And so if this is your role, it sucks that everyone's sort of like, you suck all the time, except, oh no, we need you now. Come,
Yeah.
we gotta kick some ass. But the rest of the time, we don't even like
You're
you.
in chains.
Which is crazy. But I guess sometimes, like you need that sort of animal. Like
Aries
Muppets.
was
You know,
screwing
that sort of, like,
Aphrodite all the time.
Yeah.
Like his life was not that bad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, come on in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not the store. We're
Yeah.
having, oh, you're good.
Yeah, we're just doing a book release event. Come in, have a seat.
Yeah, I mean, Aries was screwing Aphrodite all the time, and he got to live on Mount Olympus, and he was immortal. Like, things weren't that bad for him, all
Yeah.
things considered, right? It's pretty good.
People just weren't comfortable with that.
They just didn't particularly like him, right? And also because of that, there's a book called Greek Religion by a German scholar named Walter Burkert, which is kind of like the standard text for armchair historians, scholars about Greek religion. And all the gods, they get like pages about them. And Aries has maybe a page and a half. Even worse, we think of Kate in witch circles as being this extremely important goddess in the ancient world. She has like 3 sentences.
Right?
So
Yeah.
how we perceive the gods is not necessarily always how the gods were perceived in the ancient world.
For sure.
Yeah.
And we have to consider a lot of like where this scholarship and knowledge came from, because obviously we get the knowledge from the more upper class people. We're not getting like working class people. We're not getting insights from a lot of women because they weren't making the history.
Right, they weren't
Other
documenting
people-
it.
Yeah.
And we're also getting a lot of our information just from one city-state too. I mean, most of us are familiar with Athens, right? So when we think of the classical period in Greece, which is most of what we associate when we think of the Greek gods and how they were worshipped, we're mostly getting that from Athens. And we're not getting it from Sparta and from Thebes and from the other city-states. And mythology was very different from region to region in Greece, from place to place. Zeus was the linchpin of everything. Zeus kept everybody together. Zeus was extremely important. But outside of that, though, priorities changed from place to place. And a deity that was important in one area was much less important in another area. And most of what we have are the Athenian versions.
Yeah, and then 12 Olympians. Well, they were different in different places. Who was important to them? So,
Yeah, I mean, there are goddesses we don't talk about who were considered Olympians in some places, like Leto, the mother of Artemis and Hermes.
Right.
Apollo, that's right.
But and then there's a erasure too. Erasure happened, when the Greeks would conquer a city or an area. They would say, okay, Zeus is now the god. We're gonna erase this god, and he marries this woman. That's why Zeus got around so much, is because of colonialism and conquest and just taking over that god's properties, and it made it more cohesive. It made it more in line with everything else. But we have to consider a lot of that and what we don't actually know.
In fairness, though, the Greeks were really good about keeping a god's name as sort of like a second name after Zeus or whatever as an epithet.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
And they were also pretty cool about letting other deities in. I mean, there were Isis celebrations in certain ancient Greek cities. And that's another thing, too. It's the Greek gods were worshipped from England all the way to basically the borders of India, right? So it's a huge swath of the world. Yeah, and of course, Africa, absolutely. I mean, one of the most important sort of Greek cities is Alexandria, which is in Egypt, right? So, I mean, they were a worldwide phenomenon. And no matter where you were, if you were somebody who worshiped the Greek gods, the tallest mountain near you was Mount Olympus. It wasn't just that one mountain in Greece. It was whatever was near you, because the gods would then be near you. So, yeah, they were broader and bigger than just one region eventually.
Yeah, and so one thing Jason and I talk about in the book is the evolution of the deities from pre-Greek times through the ancient Greek times into Roman times, and even after that, what happened to them, how they evolved, how people considered them or thought of them. And so there's a lot of interesting stuff about like how they are in the current era too, and how they came to be, around here. We believe that the deities evolved alongside us, and they're still here with us.
I know some people get angry when they see something like Percy Jackson or whatever. Like, those aren't my gods, and how dare they use the gods like that? I'm like, millions of people are reading these books. You don't think the gods are involved in these books? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Obviously, if the gods had a problem with it, the book wouldn't exist or wouldn't be as popular as it is. And I think, and you look at the history of the gods in the ancient world, and it's one of constant evolution. It's one of constant change. They don't stay the same all the way through. They absorb each other. They let each other go. Persephone, Artemis, and Hecate, and Luna, the goddess of the moon. Yeah, Selene, they would all kind of get mixed up in various places. There are a lot of pictures of Artemis carrying Hecate's torches, because it all kind of gets mixed up. Helios is the original Greek god of the sun, but eventually somehow Apollo becomes the god of the sun, and Helios gets pushed away, and then Apollo is Apollo Helios. I mean, there's all these different ways of, of being and changing.
And the Percy Jackson thing is another example of how these myths just get retold again and again and again. And you can kind of view the evolution and kind of figure out which one most appeals to you. You don't have to like all of them. You don't have to follow all of them or adhere to them. Like the Roman poet Ovid rewrote a lot of stuff to make it more dramatic and racy and bloody and kind of dramatic. So you don't have to necessarily believe all of the tellings of the myth. You can have your own personal gnosis too, which is something we encourage with the books.
Because it's specifically modern witchcraft.
Yes,
right?
Because we're in the modern age.
Modern witchcraft with Greek gods. So using them in our day and age now, right? Or working with them, I should say, working with them in our day and age now. Sure. Have you guys seen American Gods or read it?
I've read it.
Yeah.
I tried to watch it. The show was not very
I
good.
never watched it, but I read it and then I listened to the audiobook, which is actually done with all the actors, which was really cool.
Oh, that would be fun.
Yeah, that was awesome. But talking about the idea that bringing a god to a place and worshiping that god in that place brings that god to that place. It actually, it makes even a version of that god in that place, which then changes depending on how they worship it or how they perceive it. So I think I think this is a book that we need. I think this is a great book that you guys have done. I can't wait to read it again. I actually meant to take it home last night and flip through it. Totally forgot it. But yeah, I'm gonna dig into it because this is something that I've gone researching into, and it's a nightmare. So I thank you both for doing it for me. So
Well, thank COVID
It's our pleasure.
and Wikipedia. Thank Wikipedia. Citations in my parts of the book.
So you guys are going to be here for the next 2 days after this, and you've got a lot of classes coming up. Do you guys want to just give us a brief synopsis of what you're going to be teaching over the next couple of days?
Sure. So tomorrow we're doing a very brief history of the Greek gods. And
So if you don't want to read the book, just come to the class.
the second chapter or something. But yeah, we're going to touch upon all the deities and where they came from, where they evolved to, and stuff like that. But also Greek history, pre-Greek history, and all of that stuff. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, you're doing air magic.
Okay, yeah, and I'm doing air magic, a class on Saturday morning at 11. we're going to discuss how you can embody the powers of the elements of air, and there's going to be a ritual to help you embody that as well.
I'm just going to be talking about the horn god and penises on Saturday with a different masturbation ritual
That you wrote.
that I wrote for that book that ended up on the cutting room
You have a
floor.
lot of masturbation
It's
rituals.
true.
It's impressive.
Full-time writer, you got it's tough. Just got to release
During
some tension
COVID.
sometimes, especially during COVID. So I love the horn god. That's definitely one of my passions. It's one of my favorite workshops to do. And then I'm doing one on magical practices in America from 1820 to 1950. I only have an hour to do it, and sometimes it's been 3 hours long. It's a lot of information. So we'll kind of talk about whoever shows up. There's different pieces of it. We can decide whether to talk about Scientology or not.
Whoa.
Yeah.
But the spiritualist movement that you talk about is really fascinating.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people don't know about that.
The
America
Fox
has
sisters and all that. Yeah.
America has a great occult history, and we always tend to look at England, right?
Yeah.
And over and over, and it's like, no,
Yeah.
the first pagan church was like in the United States in the 1930s, and I think that's what we're talking about, right?
Absolutely.
He wouldn't have liked us, the guy who started it, but it happened.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What was his basis? Where did he come from?
So, not unsurprisingly, he loved Aphrodite.
Uh-huh.
He was a Russian writer, and he started a Church of Aphrodite, but he was a monotheist. So he saw,
Pagan?
yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call him a pagan, but
Oh, I thought you said it was the first pagan.
it really was the first pagan church because it was for a pagan god. But
Oh,
I don't think
gotcha.
he would have
Okay,
used the word pagan like a lot of people use it today. But he was a monotheist who loved Aphrodite, and he had this church, and he thought that if you didn't worship Aphrodite after death, you would just kind of go into oblivion. But if you were smart enough to worship Aphrodite, then you would have a happy afterlife.
Sort of like the illusion.
Yeah, and he was kind of big on free love. There's some quotes from him. He's like, if your wife has an affair, that's great. Let her go and have an affair. And she'll get it out of her system, and she'll probably come back to you. Don't freak out.
Yeah, she'll definitely come back if you're not freaked out.
And I also think it was, if your husband has an affair, don't freak out. He'll come back to you because he loves Aphrodite, and his name is Glenn. Yeah, so it's fun. These are the corners of history that we don't talk about enough. And thanks to Wikipedia, I know a lot about them and can talk about them for long periods of time, sober or drunk. It's really great.
Excellent. Yeah. So if you want to come back for the classes in the next 2 days, sober or drunk, we will be here talking about these things.
Yeah, we can do the classes at a pub. That's completely fine. We've got World Cup to watch anyway, so we can do that. It's all good. It's all good.
We don't want you distracted because when you watch sports, it's a little distracting.
Oh, yeah.
I can't imagine teaching a class while watching.
It gets a little yelly.
Oh, do you get yelly at sports?
Yeah. Ew.
He's on the phone and he's like, get it in, get it in, get it. And I was like, what are you talking about?
She called me during the she called me during the World Cup. I'm like, what? Why are you even calling me now? Don't
She's
you
like,
know
what
when the
day is it
World
right
Cup is on? It's the knockout round.
How dare you?
Yeah.
The sports ball is on. You gotta talk to me now.
Sports ball always hurts me.
It always makes me laugh because I'm just not a sports person. But I respect other people's hobbies.
Yeah.
Unless they get all crazy about it.
As long as you're not yelling at me, it's okay.
What did I do? What did I do? Nothing. He just scored a goal.
It's nothing to do with you. Okay, still yelling at me. Any questions, guys?
Anything?
You guys are freaking awesome.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me just say that. I'm new to all of this. My daughter and my friend got me in it, and I love it. You give me the information that schooling didn't, the cool stuff. All that stuff you learn in school, ain't doing none of it any day.
Right?
But that stuff, you want to know, and you want to know the truth about it because there's so many different stories. You know what I mean? So it'd be nice to get all the right stories at the right place. So yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we did our best to like portray the information in the most accurate way. That's why we had so many footnotes and we read so many books.
Right.
And
Humans are such an inaccurate source, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so it's crazy because they're like, over here, they're like, it's this. And over there, they're like, no, it's this. And then they're like fighting over it.
And
But
that's
nobody
okay.
ever just says what it is.
And it's okay if there's a gray area. I don't think black and white is an
Yeah,
equal
definitely.
perspective. You know, we're okay with gray areas. Like some of the sections we wrote, like you know, the rapture of Persephone. We were like, what does this mean? Let's explore it. You know, was Kykeon hallucinogenic? Let's you know, write about both sides. And so yeah, and he had helped me inform me about one of the sides. But yeah, so we tried to do our best to put everything that we could in there to make it a more complete book to give you the actual history as
Our
best
biggest-
as you know it.
Our biggest disagreement was on the hallucinogenics.
I've never heard anyone say that it absolutely wasn't. Like that's have that stance.
That theory was really popular in the 60s. Not coincidentally, when psychedelics were very popular. And so then it gets repeated and repeated and repeated. And that's kind of takes on a life of its own
Well,
because people really want that to be true. I
I
think.
will just say that ergot was found in at least one of the ritual containers in one of the Lucinian mystery sites. So, for what it's worth,
You would have found a lot more if
But we
everybody was
don't-
doing it.
we don't know. And maybe a certain small subsection of people were doing it. Maybe it was special. Maybe it was a microdose. We don't really know.
I've heard the idea that it was upper levels who got to do that lower levels didn't, but that the upper levels, once you got to a certain point, because you had mentioned second years. or
Yeah,
something like
there's-
that,
yeah.
yes. So like, I don't know, maybe that's part of it, that once you're in it for a little bit, then you get the drugs, then you get the good stuff. If you stick with it, I don't know.
There's a payoff.
There's a payoff.
Yeah, the second year you get to the Chamber of Secrets.
But yeah, one of the
Yeah.
things we say is like, we'll never know until we have a time machine. So we'll get back to you. That'll be like the next book about the Greek gods.
It'll be next year.
Right,
But
but
then
then if
we
you
already
come back
have
and publish it.
Well, we can use the
Good.
time machine to
Yeah.
go back and write it at a different time.
Right,
Maybe
It
there's
could have
like a
already
time
come out.
continuum problem.
Yeah.
We can't go back until after it came out. I don't know.
I mean, time machine, we can just go back and live it.
Right.
Yeah, I want to live in a world with penicillin though. I mean, it just seems like a wise choice.
put some in your pocket.
Yeah, it takes hot water. Really enjoy hot water.
I mean, or you can take penicillin back with you and then really make a difference.
Butterfly effects, yeah.
Yeah.
You have a question?
I do have a question. So in doing your research and just probably learning some new individuals, are there any that you feel particularly closer to now that you feel like you can incorporate in any of your rituals, or anyone there that you feel any kind of connection to that you've never felt before?
You want to take this one?
For me, Artemis, that was one of my favorite parts to write. And I think it's because I like Diana, right, which is sort of the Roman version of Artemis. And of course, if you've read Aradia, there's Diana is like the main deity in Aradia. It's just Aradia is sort of like her speaker in a way. So I knew that, but like Artemis is really different than Diana in a lot of ways. I mean, Artemis is perpetually 14 or 15. Hera boxes her ears once in the Iliad, you know, but there were all these other like really cool things about Artemis as this younger deity, this figure like on the cusp of womanhood, for lack of like a better turn of phrase. And I just felt closer to her after writing about her. Yeah, so Zeus too. I mean, remember Zeus remote, and then people are like, Zeus is my friend. And I'm like, what? I gotta try some of this. So yeah, so those two particularly for me.
I would say for me, Hermes became a lot closer. Hermes is homie. I like to say that. He's my homie.
That's awesome.
And like, he's so intelligent and helpful and smart. He's a little bit capricious sometimes. You know, it's just really interesting. I wrote the magical parts of him in this book, and researching all of the ways that he was called upon for magical ancient practices was fascinating. So I took a lot of inspiration from them for that, and I had to try them out to make sure they worked.
So what was surprising?
Well, okay, he's very fast. You know how
Right, he's traveled.
associated with the planet
Yeah.
Mercury.
Yeah.
He shows up very quickly. He shows up and he's present, and he's helpful. I got chills again. So yeah, what's surprising is how nice he is. I think it's wonderful to work with a deity who's like, oh, you need help, here it is. Some deities are not like that. They're like, you got to serve it. I shared a story in Intuitive Witchcraft about working with Hecate, where she was like, get me a key. And I got her a key, and then she's like, now paint it black. The next ritual, I like, here's your black key. And she's like, now find me an acorn. And I'm like, okay. Like, she put up barriers, and I was like, I respect that. You want to vet your people. She comes to some people, but I came to her, and so she was testing me out. But Hermes is just like, I'm here. What do you need? So I really like that. They're just experimenting with all the magical parts too. It's really wonderful.
I'm just thinking of like how busy Hecate must be right all the time now, which is probably like, oh, she's asking for stuff. Paint the key. I can come back to you on Wednesday. And then this is a little activity for you, and then we'll chat again.
She's like, no,
later.
I got him painting the key phase. It's fine. They'll be back later.
2 months later.
Find an acorn. It's April. There aren't any acorns being made yet. Maybe we could pause this for 5 months and then come back to it.
And then she asked me to paint the acorn black too, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it, of course. And then that was the end of it. But 3 different tests.
Bury the acorn in an 8-foot pit, dug by yourself on the night of a full moon.
Like that, but yeah.
I think she would have said no, but okay, sure.
That was the best.
So was there any, so what I meant with like the Hermes and surprising was like, was there any way to work with them that was surprising to you? Like things that you would petition them for that you didn't expect, or with any of the gods that you worked with, like was something like, oh, that's totally counterintuitive to what I thought working with them would be like?
Persephone as the Punisher was fascinating.
Wow!
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh, she goes
Fuck
after people. She was using a lot of curses.
Well, I mean,
I kind of just viewed her as like this warm, friendly person who is compassionate and understands, like a sistery kind of friend or whatever, someone you just know and love and trust.
Uh-huh.
But then, like, she has that other side to her where she's like, and then I'm gonna get him or her, or whatever them,
Mhm.
So that was fascinating for me to read
very,
about.
yeah.
Artemis, a virgin goddess of childbirth.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you don't really have much experience with this, do you?
Interesting.
But yeah.
But then the contradictions of the deities too, how Demeter could be the one who gives you the crops and the richness of the land and the bounty of that, and she also take it away,
Mhm.
And Zeus, who is
He giveth, he taketh.
yeah, Zeus, he judges people and like rewards people and is about hospitality. He's known for hospitality, but he also can come down hard on somebody if they're not behaving correctly. So there are these dualities to the deities, and I think that's really fascinating too. It's something that we kind of explored a bit.
Love it, because like humans, like we were talking about, that's their human parts, like that there's more than one side to them.
Apollo,
They're
god of healing,
complicated.
god of plagues.
Yes.
You're like,
What?
yeah,
Yeah.
The sun god,
Yep.
also of plagues.
yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Don't piss him off.
And that's fascinating, right? I don't know. I would love that. We learned so many cool things.
So I think we're just about an hour now, so we're gonna break down and get ready for the ritual. But thank you, all of you. Thank you for joining us. Everybody
Thank
online,
you.
thank you for joining us. Astrea Taylor, Jason Mankey, and Modern Witchcraft with the Greek Gods, available at Witch Lab. All right, thank you all. Thank you all.
Thank you,
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end it. We're gonna end the broadcast. Bye.
Right. Freeze.